I was initially inspired because I play so much sport, and I was playing badminton was my main sport. I played all sports, but badminton was my main sport, and I was playing that roughly 5-6 times a week, training as well as playing for the county, Warwickshire. And I was travelling therefore playing at different sports centres, experiencing different changing rooms, different court surfaces, and I used to despair at things, slippy courts. I used to despair at wet, horrible changing rooms, no towels, nothing, and therefore thought, if I ever have a career, I'm going to go into running sports centres and know how I would like to receive them, be on the receiving end. And that's what's got me really when I did a degree in English and history, which I love. It's my passion, believe it or not, is English and history. So I did a joint honours degree at Leicester, and then saw this advert, which was for a trainee recreation manager for Leicester City Council, and that they would train you up to run sports centres. And I thought, I love English and history, but actually I could do this. And so I applied, and I was one of the 4 trainees that got taken on. So when I was taken on as a training manager, I was put initially on a 2-year programme, which they said we were going to put you on all the different departments in Leicester City Council, and you can then experience them and choose which one you would like to specialise in for the future. Well, I always wanted to do indoor leisure. I always wanted to do swimming pools, leisure centres, sports centres, but Leicester had such a variety of different opportunities. It was fantastic. So I spent the first few months lifeguarding in the swimming pools, cleaning out slipper baths, which people won't remember what they were, but they were awful. Slipper baths, lifeguarding, and managing as a duty manager, managing swimming pools, from small community pools to the bigger pools at St Margaret's in the middle of Leicester. It was just so revealing how tough it was, but also how funny and enjoyable it was. And it was the sense of humour, especially Leicester was one of the most progressive councils you could work for in sport and recreation. And people have been there a long time, and therefore they pushed certain qualifications, which was at that time with IBRM, but it became ISRM, which was the Institute of Baths and Recreation Management, which became the Institute of Sports and Recreation Management. So it was impressed on me right from the start that I had to get my professional qualifications. I remember going for an interview with my boss, with another guy called Steve Jarvis, and we both were graduates who had come. And we sat there in the office, and in his best Leicester accent, he said, "Well, you think you're clever buggers, but you're not really, you know nothing. And we're now going to put you through some professional qualifications so you can run this swimming pool or you can run this leisure centre. Forget your airy-fairy degree. Yes, you're clever. We know you can fill forms in and you can write essays, but this is real management, son." And I'll never forget that. I sat there in awe of this man. And I thought, oof. So Steve and I went off and we went on to day release, and we got our professional qualifications, and we learned so much, and it was tough. And we had to take 6 papers in a day, and we had to pass all 6. And if you didn't pass all 6, you had to take them all again. And it gave me a good bedrock, I think, for the CCM for the future, of how a tough and all-day exam can be and how you have to prepare for it. But what we then did was experience managing as a trainee recreation manager, going to different departments. Everyone knew you were the trainee recreation manager, so you got lots of rubbish jobs to do because everyone would laugh at you and go, "Oh, you're going to be our boss, are you? Well, you need to understand what we do, and this is what's miserable, this is what's good. And when you therefore become our boss, can you just take away the miserable jobs and just have the good job?" And I really enjoyed that. I made a lot of friends that way, but I also learned so much about, if you're going to ask someone to do something, you need to understand what you're asking them to do. And if you can do the job yourself, great. But even if you can't, who've never done it before, understand what they've got to go through, understand what uniform they need to wear, what protective equipment they need to wear, what equipment they need, and don't make sure they've got the best tools to do the job. And I never lost that, and I carry that style all the way through to the people I manage. They're saying, I don't forgive them if they break things and they break or make mistakes twice. But what I do say is give it your best, show me what you can do, let's give you the best tools to do the job, and you'll do a great job, and I'm right behind you. Why did I take on the role at Roehampton Club? I was at a great club before, Royal Mid Surrey. I'd only been there 3 years. I loved it. I loved the people. I loved the type of club it was. Yes, it was just a golf club. I'd say just a golf club, but two courses, snooker, other things. But really, golf was its core, and its passion for improving the golf course was there. But it rested so much on its laurels on tradition and heritage. But there were lovely people, lovely members to work with. So what I then did, when I looked at the challenge of Roehampton Club, and I had to be persuaded to take it, to be fair, because the previous manager, Mark, is Mark 1, I'm Mark 3. There's Mark 1, then there was a Mark 2, and I'm Mark 3. All three came in as CEOs of the club. Mark 1 tried to persuade me to join a couple of years before, because he was going off to Hong Kong. And I said, no, I wasn't ready. Royal Mid Surrey was where I needed to be. But he said, Mark, there are very few managers that have got a multi-sport background. And I learned that all from Leicester. I learned it all from this, working from my other jobs in between. And he said, you appreciate health clubs, you appreciate tennis, you appreciate all the racket sports, you've got a golf background, and you appreciate the other side of the club, which is more the cultural side. So it grew on me. And then the key question, as I said to the board of Roehampton Club, have you got the money to develop? If you've got a plan and you want me to come and change this club for the better, then have you got the money to do it? Because that's what I will do. I will spend the money to make sure we improve, not just year on year, but for the next 5 years, the next 10 years. And it needs to be a consistent plan. Because once you build up members' expectations, they will want it to improve. And each section of the club will want their turn. They'll want their turn. When's our turn to improve our surfaces, be it the greens, be it the grass courts, be it the art studio, be it the bridge room. And when you have 5,000 members of a club with all those diverse interests, and many of the members play 3 or 4 different activities or sports, they all have a say. And they promised me that they would find the money to do that. And therefore I set up operational plans. I set up master plans in terms of development, made lots of connections with local authorities here, Wandsworth, made lots of connections with councillors, which again came from my local authority background. Make sure you know who the local politicians are, who carry influence, who's on the planning committee. And because Roehampton Club is in metropolitan urban land, London Greenbelt essentially, we have lots of restrictions, and therefore we have to make the case of how we improve, and how we therefore can add to the facilities or change the purpose of the facility. So I did a lot of work that I felt that goes all the way back to Leicester, of what I learnt from that local authority, from being a trainee recreation manager, has put me in such good stead all the way through. And therefore, I've done 16 years at Roehampton Club. I've still got another 3 big projects to deliver, which should take me through to 2026, at the end of 26. The club will be 125 years old in 2026, so they want me to deliver those celebrations as well. And then by the end of 26, I think that I'll take stock and think, is there anything else that can be developed here? And if there isn't, then I think someone else needs to come in and take it away from me. I love CME. I'm passionate about CME. I'm passionate about the people who are involved, all the volunteers that we all got together way back 2014 to 2015 to some degree, and I could see that CMA needed to just take a step forward, and it was all about the education program. We had good corporate partners, we had a good education program, but then with the help of others on the board, I was vice president at the time, and Aldo Kikuchi was president, and we sat around the table with James Burns, David Roy, Kevin Fish. We all decided that we had to take it to the next level with it for the education program, the MDP program, and that's what we did. And I think I'm most proud of being part of that with that team. I wasn't the leader so much in education, but I as vice president and then as president, was made sure, again, that enabling role, making sure things happen, making sure that we take it forward, making sure the members understand what we're doing. So communication of that education program. I would say James and Kevin and others and David took that forward on that side. And then I was pleased to be able to be involved in the appointment of Toby as the well, at that time he was Education Director of Education. He's now gone on to be CEO, so that's fantastic. And looking now how that's grown. So I was very proud of being appointing Toby, because I think he's done great things. But I most proud in the time where CME needed to take a step change, I was involved in helping that step change. And then others have taken it on from there. Mm-hmm. ECF, this is all John Hunt's fault. The Colonel, he persuaded me to come to CME. He'd seen the work I'd done with SIMSPA before then, and SIMSPA, ISRM that I mentioned before, became the Institute for the Management of Sport and Physical Activity. And I was involved as chair of ISRM to merge two institutes together to form this Chartered Institute. I took a lot of my time, and I finished that in 2012, 2013. I'm very proud of that because that was to create a Chartered Institute is huge. And John then said to me, "We need you with CME. We need to get you involved." And I said, "John, I need a break." And he said, "No. We need to get you involved. Off you go. You'll do great things." And then as soon as I was stepping down from president of CME, he said, "No, I don't think you're finished. I need you on ECF. I need you to take over from me on that. You've been involved as the vice president. I want you to take it over with Nigel Cartwright, who do fantastic things. And Nigel was the CEO at the time. So I became the chair of ECF. And that was set up essentially to make sure that young managers, not particularly just starting, but youngish managers that wanted to go on the NDP program couldn't get funding for it, couldn't get funded to start MDP1, and therefore their club couldn't fund it, didn't have the budget, or they couldn't fund it personally. So the important thing was we had a number of bursaries. John was always very keen on not having too many bursaries, and we had a number of bursaries that were in the memory of Joe Perdue. So we set that was to go to World Conference, it was to go to MDP 2 or 3, and also to an MDP 1. So we were awarding 3 at the time of Joe Perdue, and that's how it started. And that was fantastic because Joe set up essentially the program with us from America when he headed up the CMAA education program. Jason Koenigshoek took it on, succeeded Joe, take it completely to another level. Jason is amazing. And we therefore looked at how many bursaries and who it applied to. And we set up a young managers bursary. We set up then other bursaries to not only reflect young people being in the industry wanting support, but other people who've come in late and from other careers. And also trying always to appeal to the members or staff, of the clubs that don't have a great deal of money or resources or don't have big training budgets. We didn't want anyone to be held back by lack of funding. And therefore, we pushed the corporate partners that support CMAE to give a percentage of the fees they give to CMAE to ECF to siphon it off and make sure we've always got an income stream coming in, as well as having some corporate partners who just supported it, like Kerry London, which was fabulous. So therefore, now we set up a bursary to go to World Conference in America, set up a bursary to go to European Conference. We still had the Joe Perdue bursaries. And then we formed a partnership with the RNA, which has been fabulous, and that's been taken on by big thanks to Jackie Davidson, who set up the Women in Golf, and to Stephen Toon, a good friend who used to run Sunningdale, big supporter of CME, moved to the RNA, and he then helped me set up the bursaries for the ethnically diverse managers in golf. And so now we have 14, 15 bursaries. I know John will go, "Oh my God, that's too many. But it is because their funding is coming from an RNA. We couldn't turn that down, and we therefore have so many opportunities to get on the education program. And as soon as they've done MDP1, our program is so good, They can then do MTP2. They can then get their diploma, and they can then go on from there. Very proud. CCM is tough, and I can understand why people are sometimes reticent in taking it, because it's a tough exam. And if you're not used to all-day exams, in terms of, even if it's multiple choice in the morning, it's 3 to 4 hours. When I did it, was 4 hours multiple choice, and then we had 3 hours for the case study in the afternoon. But it takes it all out of you, because it's everything you've learned, from study, everything you've learned from your experience in doing the job. So much of it's common sense, but you have to study for it. You can't just walk into that exam and pass it. And therefore, I was very proud in passing it with others, and I can see why it is tough. I marvel at the people who are not taking it in their first language. I mean, I was taking it in English, and also I could write reams of paper. By now they're doing it all on keyboard, and that would really cause me a problem. But essentially, I was able to write reams and reams of stuff for the case study. The multiple choice I did actually enjoy, but you've got to get things in the right order, take the paper, lots of techniques. And that's the advice I can give to people when they take CCM, is talk to other CCMs. Talk to them about how to take the exam, look at the exam technique. When you've got it and passed it, it's an amazing feeling, because you know that there are very few people who pass it. And the European CCM is way tougher than the Americans. The Americans just do multiple choice. They've got it really easy. But the Americans do give us accreditation for it, and you've got to do a case study as well, and that's tough. So I think anyone who's got CCM should be immensely proud of themselves. And it doesn't matter how many times you have to take it to pass it. Some people think, oh, what happens if I fail? It doesn't matter if you fail. You take it again, you take it again. I know very, very good managers that I'm in awe of, that have taken it 2 or 3 times. Doesn't change it, but they're so proud to have got it. And then what it does is open up the doors for you for your jobs in the UK, in Europe, but also in North America. Good friends who've recently moved over to America or into Canada have got jobs because they're CCMs. It does open doors because it is recognised, especially North America. But I also think in Middle East as well. If you look at Chris May, as an example, one of the earliest CCMs, he would automatically look to see if you got that qualification for him to take in his Dubai Gulf Empire. Because I always say to people, do MDP1, MDP2, get your diploma. It's a good benchmark. Once you've got that, it's a level of competence that everyone should recognise. We should recognise it in the industry. We have to push it more to make sure that employers, wherever they are, be it clubs or outside the industry, proprietary clubs, members clubs, doesn't matter. And I'm talking here about sports clubs, I'm talking about golf clubs, I'm talking about city clubs. Everyone will recognise that that is a level of competence. Get your diploma, then you specialise, and go. If you want to go sport, if you want recreation, you want to do food and beverage, I think you have to do F&B, because every club has F&B. And then if you want to do golf. And then you take your CCM when you're ready. And I do think it's important that yes, I was very privileged to be able to go for CCE, and I did that as a chief executive, because I got fed up listening to the Americans and Canadians saying they've got CCE and no one in Europe have got it. And I'm thinking, well, we must be able to do it. So therefore, I went over to America to do, they call it BMI4, BMI5. They were fabulous, really enjoyed them. Fortunate to be a CEO, so therefore I can get that status. And then got certified for the CCE. And I wanted to be the first to do it, because I know others would follow, but I'm thinking there's no reason why people in Europe and the Middle East can't be CCEs. And I'm pleased to say there are people, friends of mine at the moment, that are working through the process, and they'll be getting it in the next few years, and that will start then. It isn't a particular exam. You've got to pass BMI 4, which is fabulous. That's the best BMI, by the way, over in Cornell University. And then a BMI 5. You've got to pass them both, but then essentially it's more about recognition of your status by CMAA, by CMAE, and also by your club. Yeah, it's very important. It's quite tough. It's only when you try and renew your CCM, because you have to show that you've gathered so many points through attending seminars, through attending different courses, conferences. You realise that if you're not up to date, you get left behind. And you have to attend them to experience them. And I love that about CPD. I think it's very important. And I think CMA should keep that going. And when I came to renew mine in 2017, and I renewed it again in 2022, then I found it tough. I thought, wow, I'm not doing as much as I should be, or I'm resting on my laurels a little bit. On the other side is I'm pushing all my staff to go on these courses, conferences, and thinking they don't want the old man with them anymore. So it's a balance between attending the conferences that you need to go to, but also pushing the staff, the next generation, through. But CPD is vital, and it keeps us as an organisation relevant as well. I've always been firm and fair, as I like to look at it, mainly because of that training I had very early on. I think the older I've got and the more experienced I've got, the less tolerant I've become, which is not a good thing. And I'm trying desperately to think, count to 10, listen, be like the younger manager I was, which is tell me about all your ideas and this, rather than thinking, you've told me 3 ideas and 2 of them are rubbish. I'll go with the third one and I'll pick it quickly and let's go with it. I like to cut to the chase a lot more than I used to. I'll be a lot more supportive and more of a listening manager. And I'm being totally honest here. I think you do, the older you get, you think, I haven't got time to talk about this too much. Let's decide quickly and move on. So I'm trying desperately to make sure that I'm more of a listening manager than I felt I was evolving to be in the last few years. But the end game is important to me. Where do we want to get to, and what is it going to look like? And I visualize that very quickly of how I would like it to be. What I love to be is challenged, thinking, that's great, Mark, but how about this? Well, isn't this a better way? And if they can then come up with, I think this is the best way because of this, and because I've seen this, or I've done this, or I've heard this, I love that. I find the older you are, the more ideas, you can't keep thinking above all the ideas, and you shouldn't be expected to. And therefore there are people, I won't say their names rather than embarrass them, but there are other CEOs or people, other GMs in the industry, that when I sit with them and listen to them, think, I could work for you. I don't need to be the number one. I could quite happily be a number 2 or number 3 working for you and being inspired by you. I've told a couple of that and they get all embarrassed about it, but it's right, because they're progressing at a faster rate than I did, or they're more learned than I am. And they can see the end game just as quickly as I can, and maybe come from a different angle, and I love that. And that's why I like to take on good staff here, people who I think are going to challenge me, going to challenge the board of directors here, come up with ideas, think on their feet. And therefore I think I'm becoming more of an enabler for people now to take on the mantle going forward than striving to always be one of the leaders. So I think I've changed in that regard. Patience, commitment, determination not to be knocked off your stride. But also I think managers now need to be very data driven. They need to have the facts at the fingertips and not what people don't allow members who are emotive to knock you off your stride into where your end goals are. I think that you build up strategic objectives, you keep to that plan, whether it's a 3-year plan or 5-year plan. What you do is say to the board, they're custodians of the club. They're custodians of the club's heritage, they're custodians of the club's future. And that when they're a director, as I am as a CEO, all we're doing is to improve the club at that time. You can only do your best at that time, but you put in the foundations for others to take it forward. So your strategic plans, the master plan that I come up with here goes up to 2035, and development, same thing. this is the plan. There are some moving on parts of that plan. Things can be taken out, things can be added, but we have a plan. And members like to know that the people who are in charge of the governance of the club have a plan. This is our plan. This is where we're going with it. This is where this is the funding we've got for it. Everything's funded. We hopefully we'll get planning permission, but if we don't, we've got an alternative. We've got a plan B, and then therefore they think their club is in good hands, and then the CEO or the GM or the deputy GM then carries that message forward to the board, but also carries the message forward to the staff. And you have to tell your staff what the plan is. You have to communicate with them regularly. We do quarterly meetings regularly, and I'm constantly talking about the plans, where we are, what we've achieved, what's this year's progress, what's next year's possibilities. Because when members talk to staff, they always talk to the frontline staff. What do you think of this then? Why do you think he's doing that? Why do you think the board are doing this? And they have the answers. Well, this is what we think it will achieve. This is where we are at the moment. We hope this. And then it stymies the members. They go, oh, staff know what's going on. Staff are positive. And if staff have questions thinking, Mark, a member mentioned this, I'm not quite sure what the answer is, I'll tell them the answer and say, brilliant. But they go back positive and think, yeah. And they're stakeholders as well as the members. It's so important to keep your staff and the directors of your club as stakeholders and believe in the plan and believe in the mission. There's always something to improve. I love improving facilities. I love improving. It goes right back to those badminton days of, have we got the best greens? Have we got the best grass tennis courts? Have we got the best paddle courts? How do we get now pickleball courts? How do we produce the best bridge room? How do we ensure that each of the sections fulfill their potential? How do we ensure that juniors can be brilliant adults? Have we got the best people in the best teams? How do we become national champions at each of the sports that we do? They're big aspirations, but they're things we can deliver. So at the moment, national champions in tennis, squash, croquet as part of the club. Why aren't we in golf? And that's one of our missions at the moment. We can't even win the county championship at the moment in golf, and I'm desperately trying the men to do that. The women can, but the men can't. So I think, how do I get them into the same philosophy we've got with our other teams and our other sections to be the best they can be? And therefore that drives me all the time. And so I need to provide the best tuition, which is the bedrock of our club essentially, the best services, the best support. And how do we attract members that are going to add something to the club? We have a 3-year waiting list, but we have a fast track system for members that are special, that have special sporting abilities, or special tuition levels, or the best backgammon player in London. I've just done an interview with a guy that wants to come in because he's a grandmaster at chess, and the chess section is, please can we get him into the club because it's going to take our teams to another level. And I use the same analogy development as I've done with the tennis and the squash. How do we get the best players? How do we therefore get the members benefiting from listening to them, playing with them, and being inspired by them? And that is what inspires me every day, saying, how do I make this club better? How does Roehampton Club be the best multi-sports club in the country? How is it continue to win the awards as UK top sports club? And I want to therefore leave that to somebody who comes in after me to saying, continue that, if you want to. If they don't want to, fine. But I know when I was here, I gave everything to make sure it was the best club. I love the industry. I love the people in the industry. I love most of the members in the industry, but not all of them. And I'm excited about the future. I know that I'm going to get to a point here where I can't do much more. I want to hand that on. And secondly, I therefore want to then get into executive search or consulting to help appoint GMs, CEOs, course and grounds directors. I want to help them and help the clubs get the best people. And with the support of CME with the education programme, if I can push that and use my experience to help people for the next 10 years, 20 years possibly, then I would love to do that. And I don't want to waste therefore all the friends and experience I've had in the industry for the last 30 years.